I'm coming with you. Too much distance. You also have the chance to get a microphone so you can get heard. So, it's a very diverse panel that we have today. In terms of background, in terms of age, of generation. So this is also the goal of this, this panel that we have today, to show also a very, like a wide panel of what is the space field today. We have young people, we have people with more experience, we have people working in an organization, people working in startups. So you are very different, but you have one thing in common, which is space, and also that you started space really early. And I'm going to go through all of you and ask you maybe how this space passion started, and also how it changed today, your passion and your dream of space, with respect to before you started your career, your job as today. Maybe we can start with Pierre in the order of the slide.
Okay. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the winners who present the project. It was very nice, very good presentation and really impressive. So kids of my generation grew with Tintin comic books where Objective Moon and We Walked on the Moon was seen as a dream, but as an achievable dream. Many years later, we began to speak about more and more about Mars exploration, and we always go further to imagine what could be the steps beyond the first missions on the moon. Scientific missions and robotic missions replaced more and more human perspective, but since a few years ago, human exploration received a new impetus which helps us to dream again and to dream bigger. That's why, personally, I have decided to join a few months ago the exploration company, which has the ambition to make space exploration easier, to push the limits, and to democratize space exploration by offering affordable and available solutions. We are pushing hard to have Europe on board human exploration because we believe that Europe has a special mission. Europe has a mission to bring in space its historic values. We have discussed about it during the previous roundtable. Its historic values, which are unity in diversity, and contributing to build a better space, more peaceful, more cooperative. And this requires that Europe stay among the space leading nations and will be able to fly humans, as flying humans will become more and more common as being able to fly rockets today and or to build and operate satellites, the work I performed years and years. So I'm really very now passionate to be involved in this new impetus of human exploration.
Thank you, Pierre. That's true. When we think of dream, is also a lot related to human in space, because we are approaching to ourselves. So we imagine ourselves in space and stuff. And this is also a lot that you're working on a project that will be able to like a capsule where people can be inside. So it's a really inspiring and linked to the topic of today about the dream. Donya. So we talk about Europe, and you are also somebody that traveled a lot. So let us know about your dream and how it evolved today.
Yeah, for sure. I like to think of myself as a recent grad, even though it's not really as early anymore. But I hope this kind of resonates with more of the students that are here, because I know there's a big chunk of students around here. The start of me getting into space was not always really easy. I don't think it's easy for anyone, really. I'm a first-generation immigrant to Canada. By citizenship, I'm Canadian. By heritage, I'm not. Where I was born, unfortunately, access to aerospace, especially for women, was not really an option. So really, my first exposure to space was someone put a slide in the last session, and that just really hit home with me. And that was a cover of Tintin book, Destination Moon. That was my very first exposure to space. It just kind of, it just went on and on from there. And I always knew I was pursuing a career in science. It was something that I liked, I loved, and to this day I still go back to it. It's kind of like the comfort kind of place for me, no matter if I'm running a company. So I immigrated a few times until I found my place where I could pursue aerospace, but kind of what hit me was that I'm not an engineer. I haven't done a day of engineering in my life. I do not know how to code, how to do design, anything technical. And I think it was around 2018 where I decided, well, you know what? Don't have to be an engineer to do aerospace. We need to shift that paradigm a little bit, because there were more and more people around me who were not necessarily technical people, and engineers are great and we need engineers. We all know that. But if we're constantly talking about aerospace for all and making space accessible to everyone, we should also take care of, everybody in different backgrounds or majors that are going to be trying to get into aerospace but might be a little bit intimidated because it might be heavily technical. Bringing kind of gaps together, I was doing science, my colleagues were really stellar, amazing engineers who were doing all these smart people things, and I say that because everybody in my team is a lot smarter than me. I'm the least smart person on my team. And that became kind of bridging the gaps between human spaceflight, something very technical and something very human. From that, my perspective changed in two aspects. One, you don't have to be an engineer to do aerospace. If anyone tells you that, don't believe them. Second, there is a massive skills gap, specifically when it comes to human spaceflight. And my perspective at that changed completely because I realized, I could offer something as a scientist, and there were issues, there were problems with no solutions. And human spaceflight is fantastic. It's what we want to do. Is we want to advocate for, and we do that all the time. But when you put the word human in anything, especially spaceflight, it becomes 1,000 times more exciting, but also 1,000,000 times more complicated, because now you have the most precious payload. So that view kind of started to shape itself for me. It didn't start as that. I didn't always know I wanted to do space or want to become an astronaut, or the kind of the stories that you hear. But kind of things fell into place, and I think that kind of like brought me to where I am today and where we're talking about with human spaceflight. We are talking about putting humans safely on the moon and beyond our planet, becoming interplanetary. But do we really know exactly what happens to the human body and how we can mitigate all those problems? So,
thank you, Donya. Maybe we can display the video also of Roger-Maurice on the big screen, if it's possible up there. But yeah, I agree. We had one presentation about space medicine, but that's true. Like, it's a big. It has its importance in the space field today, exactly as an engineer. So it's it's nice what you're doing, especially startup side. So Roger-Maurice, how did your dream evolve since you started your career in the space field until today?
The dream which I mentioned to you, thank you for the question, started very few weeks ago. But what I have done in my career started with the launch of Sputnik 1, I must say. And I was young, and I said, this is what I want to do. And I went to university, make my studies in science, essentially, and then I saw that pure science was not what I wanted to do. I said I want to go to space. Not only me, but also things which I want to launch and which will be helpful to understand some things in the history of humanity and of science. So you have to have in mind when you start such work or pleasure, you have to really identify what you are strong for, and don't be shy to say that you are strong and born and good in this place, but do not go to everything. Be careful, be very precise. Of course, today, the problem which everybody feels is how what I am doing will be, why, and what will it be for the good of humanity. So you must really help the people who will fund your project in that dimension. But it's not everything that you have to do for that, but it is something that you can use when you are asked, why are you doing and spending all this money, which happens to me very often. If you start a project, if you start working on space, you must also, as possible, identify the major challenges that you will have to meet. Maybe some of them you don't know yet, but you certainly do with a background which is sufficient for you to really look at the problem that your ID, your visions can be done. What will you do if you go to a planet? You must realize that this is a question that everybody asks. A few years ago, I met with a young boy in Austria, and we opened competence for all the people around the big development in Australia, and this young boy managed to be the best. So I was there and I asked him, what do you want to do in the future? He said, I want to be a rocket driver. So that's very interesting. What will you do with your driver, with a rocket driver? I will go in a big rocket and I will land on the moon. And what will you do on the moon? He said, I will open the door, I will look around, and I will try to find where is the next tree. And as soon as I have found it, I will pee on it. See, this is something which is very strange, but for me, it shows that this guy was very clever, had something in his matter, and he had a plan. Well, of course, this is not necessarily the plan that everybody wants to have, but this is to illustrate the need for your plan to be acceptable, to be quasi easy to do, not envisage things which are impossible. Things become less impossible as long as you work on them. And one thing which in my career I really enjoyed and applied, which is the following: never give up in front of difficulties and catastrophes. I launched all my satellites, and all of them had problems. One of them exploded in space, but it was relaunched and it's still working today. Do not give up. This is my comment and my thanks to you, because it is important. So I can stay there, but if you have other questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Roger-Maurice, and it's a nice advice that you give in the end of your little speech. This is what you say. So, dreaming is nice, of course, and it also applies for every different aspect of space law, space medicine, engineering, science in general. But we should not forget that dreaming is great, but there are some actual challenges to arrive to this ending goal that you mentioned, the three of you. What is, from your point of view, let's start with Pierre again, the biggest challenge for humankind to realize these dreams that we are thinking about, the dream of space exploration in general?
I hear this morning Jean-Jacques explaining that we won't speak about money, but for sure one of the biggest challenges is to have enough money to realize all the projects and to avoid the stop and go which are detrimental for such projects, and we all know that there has been some stop and go in the past. So it's really important to have this money which is able to to allow us to manage and need this long-term perspective program, which required long time and which required money. Money is, however, reasonable because, for example, for SpaceX, it took 3 billion and 10 years to build Crew Dragon. So you see, it's not so amazing amount of money, but for sure, there's a need for that. For me, the biggest challenge, because humankind is always ready to discover and is ready to pioneer and ready to push the limits, so that's not the challenge. And the second challenge is to accept to work on a cooperative mode. This has already explained before on such big programs. That's why Europe is the perfect frame to lead these exploration projects, gathering the competencies already existing in Europe. It's also the unique way to be in a position to cooperate more equally with the US, who are leading the race on all these such exploration projects and exploration dreams. And we have added value, and again, we are convinced that European companies are strong enough, are innovative enough, are to be part of the US dreams and to be a reliable partner who counts in these new challenges.
Thank you, Pierre. Donya, do you have another point of view on this, or do you join the argument that Pierre just listed? What is, from your point of view, the biggest challenge that we have to face as humanity?
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with the pioneering and pushing and kind of, putting that first foot forward that, this is sure a dream, but so was everything else before it started. There was always an idea before things really happened and took form. I add to that point that, again, I'm going to talk on the perspective of an aerospace physiologist and kind of drive the point home with human spaceflight a little bit more, because with space exploration and human spaceflight, there are certain issues, and we don't know a lot. That's the bottom line. Long story short. Science has come an absolute long way from the very first times we started running experiments and testing different protocols for keeping astronauts healthy, trying to simulate space-like conditions on Earth, using beta studies, using artificial gravity, seeing what works and what doesn't. Really, it's been a large, long kind of term trial and error with trying to keep people alive and healthy up there. Alive, healthy, and happy, because that's important. But that being said, our scope of knowledge is very much limited to really what happens to the human body in LEO. Going forward, going on exploration missions, going in, staying on the moon, going on a trip to Mars, these are longer than we can simulate on Earth. We're doing our best. We've taken some great strides with that. We've done an 8-month isolation mission with serious missions. We've done a ton of beta studies, 60 days, more than 60 days. That being said, as much as they give us great data and we are creating this body of knowledge that, okay, we can see what happens to the human body, we can't simulate those long-term space flights. And that means that we cannot possibly know what exactly is going to happen to the human body going forward. So researching into that and trying to simulate those conditions on Earth is going to be an ongoing attempt. That's going to be definitely one of the biggest challenges, because when we send people up there, we're responsible for them, for their health, for their mental health, physical health. And those are things that we need to really study and really make sure we have not even all, I would say most of the answers at least, enough that we can mitigate serious issues, but also solutions, also methods to reduce those downsides of spaceflight on human body. If there is an emergency condition happening on the surface of the moon, you have an astronaut out there, how are you going to pull them out? And how are you going to minimize these serious conditions? So in my perspective, as a physiologist, that's one of the biggest challenges with this human spaceflight.
Okay, thanks, Donya. So yeah, collaboration, technical challenges as well, scientific challenge. So of course, these are like some challenges that we can think of a big challenge list. So Roger-Maurice, in a few words, do you have also in your mind some or maybe from experience, what type of challenges did you have to face to realize the dream that you were dreaming of before you started, and also the ambition of ESA, for example, or ambition of humanity in general in the space exploration? What are the biggest challenge that you have faced to arrive to these missions and to this angle?
Well, the big missions are expensive, so this is certainly a challenge that everybody has to feed, and it is obvious. I don't think I have to go far away in this. What I did in my own, I was a scientist, so my people were scientists, all of them. And knowing that they were always considered as parasites of the big programs because they were losing money and there was so many things more interesting to do. In fact, is certainly true, but there are many things which you can do with little money and which can satisfy even the scientists. What I did when I started, I asked all the scientists around me, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? So everybody, even from the US, and I got a large number of answers, and from where we could design a future program, which has been called Horizon 2000 for several years and still work today, where we satisfied all the scientists. It is not easy because some of them want to go at the end of the universe, and other one want to go on the moon or in Mars or elsewhere, and they do not have necessarily the same idea in mind. But you put them in a situation where they fight for them, but also for all the others. This is very, very important that the people who go to the end of the universe can do that because they have been agreed by those who are looking to Mars. And to do that, of course, requires some discussion. And this is very, very important that in the future, scientists are becoming more and more interested by the discoveries that they made before. And it is essential that everybody keep supporting this report. If, of course, everybody does support to this because they have an interest. And this is not easy, but make everything you do interesting for everybody. And not only just for the small people, which are a small number of people who are essentially looking at their own interest. Now, just a small phrase which I did not probably mention. When I was invited to make this dream, I thought immediately that what we have to do is to give the young people an opportunity to go everywhere in the solar system, everywhere on Earth. Not necessarily them, but something that they have built. Like in the past, there were small rockets which were built in some fields somewhere, and they still exist. So they were not able to launch big satellites. They were able to show that people could do that. I think maybe in the future, this is what we have to do also for the young people, because the planet is full of young people. But what do they do today? What do they do today? I think we should stop that. This was my idea when I proposed this program. Make that sure. And if you have programs in your mind, make sure that in your genius you can satisfy this problem, because it is the future. If we continue like that, in fact, the future of space will be in a dramatic situation.
Thank you, Roger-Maurice. So yeah, communication, collaboration, and technical challenges that we can sum up these challenges and these aspects that we need to